Hi folks, Heather here, and glad that you could stop in and join me today. If you're new here, really happy to have you. Hope that you'll check the channel out and join the community if you find something here that resonates. If you're a returning viewer, as always, I really appreciate you. I know that I always say that, but I feel compelled to say that now, especially considering that I have been away from the channel for a while, and probably, I guess, a little over 2 months, I have not posted anything. So while I was on my hiatus, I watched a video. It came out as a live stream, but I unfortunately didn't catch it live, but I did watch the replay. And that is the hashtag linked below, working towards well-being. And that stream was put together by Gerald over at The Hermit Mage. And it highlights some topics that really resonated with me on my, based on my own kind of personal journey of moving myself towards wellness and figuring out what I need to do in order to improve my own health. And really that directly correlates in a lot of ways to my spiritual journey, which I talk a lot about on this channel. So in that stream, I'm going to just kind of look over in this direction just to make sure that I have the questions right and the people that were involved in the event. There were 4 questions that were addressed in that live stream that I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about with you today. And it really correlates to the reason why I really haven't been engaged in making YouTube content over the last couple of months. So hopefully it will kind of give you some insights into what I've been dealing with on my end, and explain a little bit about the reasons why you might see sometimes a gap in how I post content. So involved in that live stream, it was Zane from Tarot Toke and Witchery, Jilly from Little Zen Crow, Richard from Longman Tarot, and Jen from Jen's Science to Soul Tarot and Transformation, Kristen from Kristen Louise Empress Tarot, and Sandra from The Whispering Well. And they really did such an amazing job at showing not only their own wellness journey, but allowing for people to hold space for some topics that really kind of set people up in a vulnerable light. And I was really touched by the live event, watching it back on the replay. And I was touched for a few reasons, because when I initially joined the YouTube tarot community, I didn't know that I had a chronic illness. I knew that something was going on, and I had been on a journey for a little bit over a year and a half trying to figure out what was going on with me. Of course, as with a lot of chronic illnesses, there was some misdiagnoses that were happening in the beginning, and it was just a very confusing time. And I think because I was going through that difficult period, I was more inclined to really start developing myself spiritually. It really became an integral part of understanding what was going on, in my mind, in my body, and with my spirit as well. And so I think that really kind of propelled me to start learning more about different spiritual paths. And I had felt very disconnected from a spiritual path for a long time, so it was comforting in many ways. And in addition to that, it really led me back to tarot, which, I learned when I was a teenager and used, throughout my early 20s. And I hadn't used it in quite some time. And I have a cousin who I'm pretty close with, and she kind of brought me back to tarot. And then once I had started, using tarot again, I really started looking for different YouTube videos, and I was surprised by all of the wealth of information on YouTube. And, to find this community has been really empowering in a lot of ways for my spiritual journey. It's also allowed me to expand my community because I don't have like a real tight knit I do have, a support system and some community, but not to the level that I do now. So that's been, I think, really wonderful, kind of getting to know people through their content and really feeling, even on Instagram, I've, been able to reach out to people who, have the same illness that I do and get a lot of support that way. So I don't want to get too far abroad in this. I do want to try to answer the 4 questions that were kind of set forth by the group during the first live stream. And I would definitely recommend checking out the hashtag. There have been a few VRs since then, prior to mine. And there's also been another live stream that was put together by Mindy over at Artistry of Tarot, and the hashtag for that was chronic illness. That was also amazing for me to watch, and really, I think until these live streams came out, I really did not realize that I'm not really alone. Like, that this touches so many lives. Chronic illness touches a lot of different people. And it's not something that a lot of people talk about. Okay, I'm going to try not to get emotional. It's not something that a lot of people allow themselves to kind of be vulnerable to talk about, but it's definitely something that is worth talking about, recognizing that everyone is kind of dealing with their own stuff, right? And finding different ways to hold space for somebody, not just because they have a chronic illness, but just, I think, maybe learning to be better at allowing for space to talk about it, to share. And I just think for me, it was such a relief to know that it's actually everywhere. Like, I have one other person in my life who has a chronic illness that I can talk to, but it's just completely different to recognize that there are people all over that are really kind of trying to deal with this too. And it's such a great thing to know that I'm not alone in my wellness journey, and that there can be, if given, there is if given time to cultivate, there is a community out there that can be supportive as well. And so that was just really cool to find out. So the first question is, please introduce yourself briefly and share one thing you're grateful for. So I'll go ahead and share a little bit with you now. I am a poet and a writer, and I've done that for a very long time. That actually is what my degree is in, and that led me down a kind of teaching career pathway for a while. And I've taught in a variety of different settings. I've taught overseas. I've taught in a university setting. I've taught in a refugee resettlement program, a juvenile detention center, a group home. So I've had, a variety of different teaching experiences throughout my life. In addition to that, this last, I guess, year and a half, I've been actually writing curriculum for a teaching organization, and that has been really, really nice. It's enabled me to, kind of step out of the classroom a little bit, and it's also, I think, more conducive for, for my illness. In reality, I'm not as tied to like a teaching schedule. And so I'm very lucky that my job is able to accommodate me in a lot of ways. And so that's been really great. And that's kind of what I do for my 9 to 5. Aside from that, I'm a Reiki master and practitioner. I make candles. I do tarot readings, and that is all part of how my spiritual practice has evolved over these last few years. And I've just kind of stepped into that arena, I guess a couple of years ago now. So I've been doing that for a little while and building my client base, and hopefully I will continue to be able to do that in the future. So that's my plan. Let's see what else. I have a lot of hobbies. I read, I write still. I try to move with intention every day. So I like to spend a lot of time out in nature. So these are all kinds of things that I guess tell a little bit about me. I'm obsessed with herbs and herbalism. I hope to be able to study herbalism more formally at some point in my life. I do a lot of wildcrafting with things that I bring in from nature. So yeah, and if you check out my playlist, you'll kind of get a taste of a little bit of that. I tend to share a lot about my spiritual practice and what that entails. Not only divination, but also information about like rituals, craft rituals that I like to do and things of that nature. So I think that watching those videos will give you a little bit more insight, because I do tend to be pretty open about what I share. Although this is the first time that I've ever really kind of spoke out and said that I I'm a person who experiences and struggles with chronic illness. I am a little bit more forthcoming in that arena when it comes to my social media, my Instagram accounts in particular. So that is something that I've shared there pretty openly. So yeah, let's see what else. Things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for a lot, and I've actually really made it a point to be more mindful of that on a day-to-day basis as part of my morning routine, just because I think when you suffer from chronic illness, it's really easy to get bogged down by the negative aspects of that, and to really kind of start to focus in on that. And so I have to really be mindful of that, because if I'm not careful, it will kind of put me in a bit of a depressed state. So I think for me, like trying to be mindful of what I'm grateful for is just kind of a way for me to really kind of take control over my illness to a degree. And so there's a lot that I'm really grateful for. I have family who are supportive. Not everybody, but I do have some family that are supportive of me, and that often will, reach out to see if I need anything. I have great friends. Not a lot, but I do have two in particular that I know that I could call day or night, and they would step up to the plate to see what they could do to help me. So I'm really super grateful for them. I'm grateful for the community that I found on YouTube. As I mentioned in my intro, it was, even before I knew that there were other people in the community who perhaps had chronic illness as well, like just being able to come to YouTube and find out information about divination and things that I was interested in that kind of correlates to my spiritual practice and my own personal growth and development was just comforting. It was comforting. It was self-affirming in a lot of ways, and I'm really very excited for that. I am also involved in a community, a group of women who meet regularly on, once a week on Sundays. And I think that I'm, very grateful for them and the fact that they take time to hold space for me, the fact that they reach out to check in on me. And I never would have met them if it weren't for YouTube. So that's pretty amazing, I think, in and of itself. So yeah, so much to be grateful for. I'm grateful that even though I've suffered over the last couple of years, really in a lot of ways not knowing exactly what my diagnoses were, and then even after finding out, like, I'm grateful I found out. Like, that gives me a sense of understanding. That gives me a place to kind of go in and start to take back some of my power in terms of learning about the illness, learning how to fight it, learning how to treat systems in my body so that they perform at an optimal level. Like, those are all amazing things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my functional medicine doctor. I know that sounds insane, but for a while I was passed from specialist to specialist, and because I had several different things going on, and those can sometimes be very cold, cold appointments. They're brief. They don't always get at all of the questions that you have. They don't always end with some sort of resolution or anything like that. I'm grateful that I learned about functional medicine and I was able to find a practitioner who would work with me, who would listen, and who would be, open to giving me guidance on options, right? Just needing to have options, different ways I could tackle my illness, so that I could, kind of move towards a healing. Like, not everybody heals from chronic illness, and that's a reality. It's a stark reality that many people have to deal with. But being able to figure out, like, how do I get as healthy as I can, right? So that I can function, so that I can add value to my community, to my home, my family, my friends, my relationships. That's been really, just wonderful for me to have that in my life. There are probably 100 other things that I could mention in terms of what I'm grateful for. Those are the things that come to mind, I think, first and foremost. If something else pops up, though, I'll probably mention it as well. I don't want this video to be, like, really long, and I know it's probably already getting there. How can you tell that you need to pay attention to your well-being? That's gotten easier over time. Really, the first step towards being able to do that for me was setting boundaries and learning how to say no and learning how to let things go. And that was really huge for me in terms of being able to figure out what my body needed and how to listen to those needs, right? How to listen to the warning signs when my body is saying, nope, you've reached your threshold, you can't give anymore, people can't take anymore, you have nothing else left. It's time to nurture yourself. And that's probably been the best part about my diagnosis, because I used to never say no to people. I would just keep push through the pain, push through the fatigue, push through the hand swelling and the stomach aches and all of the different things that come along with my illness. And I just, so like learning how to be able to set those boundaries made it a lot easier for me to listen to my body. And so for me, knowing that I need to do that is it's kind of twofold, right? So the first thing that I have to really do is focus on what do I need day to day in order to prevent a flare up, right? Like I want to prevent any kind of flare up, whether that's inflammation, swelling, depression, all of those things. Like, what do I need to do? So, I had to be able to figure out what that was. And for me, I do that through, I take ritual baths regularly that I choose ingredients for that based on, whether or not I'm inflamed, what my mood is like, things of that nature. Other thing that I do pretty regularly to kind of prevent any kinds of flare-ups would be meditation and spending time in nature every day. I do a lot of earthing, and I take my shoes off, reconnect to the earth, absorb, all of that energy from the earth, because it is really good for your own autonomic nervous system, for the electrical system that does make up the human body. It's vital to preventing inflammation for me. So that's one aspect of making sure that I'm setting myself up to be successful and prevent any kinds of flare-ups that are going to encroach upon my life and make things terrible for me. The other thing that I've learned how to do is through being able to kind of set boundaries, it's easier for me to recognize when I'm not feeling well. So I suffer from psoriatic arthritis. I have a couple of gastrointestinal issues that I'm dealing with currently. I also have another condition known as HS. I would pronounce it, but I can't. In addition to that, I have some symptoms of dysautonomia. And if you're not familiar with that, that basically just means that my autonomic nervous system is out of whack. So I'm hypersensitive to stimulus, a lot of stimuli. I'm hypersensitive to noise, temperature, just a lot of different things. With that comes things like anxiety. So those are all things that I can tell when my dysautonomia kicks in that it's time to step back. That's the beginning of a flare for me. Like, it's easy to notice, like, oh, psoriatic arthritis, I, have joint swelling, and that's evident, right? I can see it. But even prior to that, like, I will get, it sounds like my heartbeat is in my ears, and it gets super, super loud, and my equilibrium, it kind of goes out of whack, and I become very unbalanced. It's difficult to, kind of stand up with my eyes closed without swaying. It's like you feel kind of like you're on a boat all the time. And so when I start feeling like that, I know that, okay, take a step back, go back to those self-care rituals, do some of those, and really try to get this in perspective, because right after that will come, migraines, joint swelling, not being able to move, things of that nature. So one thing I didn't mention about my preventative routine, I did say about like going out in nature and walking, that's part of, like, I have to exercise every day. So I do that every day. I do yoga every day. I hope to be able to build my fitness level up, to get, a little bit more cardio in and some more strenuous activity, but I'm just not there yet. So, but I'm getting there. I'm working on that. So those are all signs for me. Like, when I start having some of those symptoms of dysautonomia, I know that I need to take a step back. When I start getting irritable, I need to take a step back. when anger starts to bubble up to the surface over little things that are really not that important in the scheme of things, I take a step back. So those are all things that are warning signs for me. Let's see. Number 3, what does support look like for you? And I've really been talking about that in a lot of different ways throughout this video thus far. You know, I have a really great support system that I've cultivated online, particularly through Instagram. I have a great support system, you know, with my friends and, you know, in my home life. So that's been really good. That was not easily come by though. You know, one thing that I've learned over the last few months in particular is it's very important to give people the opportunity to step up, you know? And I think for a long time, I didn't ask for help. Nope, I've got this. I can do this on my own. I can push through the pain. I can push through. And, you know, it wasn't until a couple of months ago that I finally said, you know what? Like, I need more help. So I've learned a lot about letting things go, not necessarily caring about laundry being piled up or the dishes being piled up. I would have never done that before. I never would have done that before. I would have just pushed through. But I've learned that it's, you know, if it comes down to being able to get up and meet my core responsibilities the next day, what is it that is a necessity for me to get done versus what is a preference? And I think as a result, I've had to kind of really step back away from some things that I normally would like never step away from. And that has really allowed my husband to step up and, you know, take on some of the household responsibilities. That's allowed friends to kind of come and give me a ride if I need a ride. You know, offer to bring by. I have a really good friend who's offered to bring by food when, you know, right when I got home from my hospital stay. So I think that giving people an opportunity to step up is really key to a support system. So in addition to all of the things that I try to do in my own spiritual development and in my own kind of preventative medicine journey, to really try to keep myself at the level that I need to keep it at in order to be productive and, you know, to add value to my relationships and show up in the world the way that I want to show up. Right? So like if I'm not doing what I need to do to support my own mental health, my own physical health, my own spiritual health, then I can't really fault people for not stepping up to do the same. And so really, since my diagnosis, I've been learning how to manage that. And by letting things go, and whether that's at home or in my you know, core relationships with my friends, that has given them a chance to step up. And it's also giving me a lot more, you know, once I've kind of saw that they were willing to be helpful and step up, it made it really okay for me to start asking for help, you know, because that was like something I didn't ever want to do. I didn't want to ask for help, like, oh, I need help. No. So I really, you know, seeing that they were willing to be helpful enabled me to really start asking for what it is that I need. So that's been really a great support system. The tarot community, whether they know it or not, like I don't interact with everybody. So, you know, there are a lot of content creators that I watch. And I think just knowing that you know, that I have that community there are other people like me, not only who might be suffering from chronic illness, but also who might be suffering from mental health, who might be suffering from, you know, other things that I may not even be aware of, but just knowing that there are people out there, like-minded individuals who have the same interests that I do. That's a key element of support for me. The viewership that I've cultivated on this channel, and it's a small channel, but I've made some friends on this channel who if I don't post or if they don't see my social media presence on Instagram, they'll DM me and say, hey, how are you doing? Like, is everything good with you? Just thinking about you. That's really very helpful, I think, for me, in terms of just not feeling as alone. So let's see. The last question: what form of divination do you use, and how does it relate to your well-being? So I've really been talking about that throughout. For me, it's all connected, right? My need to understand my physical well-being led me down a spiritual path. And I really have developed that over the last 2.5 years, probably maybe even a little longer than that. And I think that it all correlates, right? Your mental health, your physical well-being, your spiritual well-being, all of that is tied together. And so it's totally related. It's totally related. Divination for me it does offer me a way to really kind of delve deeper into my own kind of spiritual practice, and it's helped me define what that is. It's helped me find a very kind of spiritual level of support that's enabled me to kind of cultivate resilience, so I'm able to bounce back much quicker when I have a flare or when I'm in a depressed state because I'm in pain, and I don't know why, or because I can't eat chocolate or drink coffee anymore. Like, sometimes you just have days like that where it's just like, this sucks and I don't want to get out of bed. But divination is the thing that often, will pull me back to the surface when I feel like I'm drowning. And that's real, like that's real. And so I think that, for me, that it's been really key, and not only my own kind of like personal development and understanding my own identity, but also in understanding, figuring out, like, I guess, what my spiritual path is and how that correlates to my own personal development. So it goes hand in hand. And in terms of what I use tarot, of course, oracle, of course. I also do playing card divination, and I use a pendulum every single day. In fact, that's often how I intuitively just decide what meals I'm going to eat, and things like that. That's been really, really helpful in terms of getting my diet back on track, which one good thing coming out of my recent, stint of being away from YouTube is that I've really kind of taken this as an opportunity to get my diet in check, to learn more about like how I should be eating, and to grow my exercise routine. And I've been able to lose 22 pounds. So that's like huge. That's huge for me. And yeah, I have a pendulum to help me do some of that work. And this year I really did want to tackle ruins, and I've done a little bit of study with that, but unfortunately, over the last couple of months, as I've really kind of focused on improving my health, I have really taken a step back from that, but I do hope to return to it at some point in the near future. Lenormand or Lenormand is something that, I do have several decks, and that is kind of the thing that I want to do next on my list. So I guess I pretty much have dived into you know, a lot of different divination practices. But by and large, it's mostly just, you know, pendulum and tarot and oracle and playing cards at this point. So yeah, that pretty much covers the different forms of divination that I use and how it relates to my well-being. And let's see, I think that's pretty much it. And I hope that really, for those of you that have been kind of with me on this journey, you know, since I started the channel, I think back in September, still pretty new to YouTube, I think. But for those of you that have been on this journey for a while, I hope that this kind of gives you a little bit more insight into, you know, the reasons why sometimes my posts are not, you know, timed, right? Like, you know, I always want to try to get out 3 videos a week. Sometimes I can, and sometimes I really just can't. Like maybe I get one, maybe I get one a month. But that's the reason why. And I really hope that that doesn't discourage you from being subscribed to the channel and supporting the channel, because I've really found this to be a really welcoming space, and I do hope the channel will grow. And for those of you that are new, I hope this gives you a little bit of more insight into really what I'm focused on in terms of content for the channel. And more importantly, for everyone watching, I hope that this really kind of sheds some light on what it's like to deal with chronic illness, and what wellness is like for people, you know, like in terms of you know, what that's going to look like. Because I think wellness, it could be defined differently by different people. And I think that to one extent or another, we've all been kind of moving towards wellness throughout this last year, which has been really pretty difficult for a lot of people. So with that being said, I hope that you will check out the other VRs. And if you haven't had a chance to see the live streams that were done that I mentioned early on in the video, I would highly recommend you take the time. The comments are great. The support that people showed in those comments was remarkable and extraordinary on many different levels. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you'll stick it out with me, and I hope that you have a blessed day. Bye.